Hey folks, Studio here. So this is going to be talking about the patch notes because, might as well. It's 2 AM, I'm not doing anything. Can bust out some words about what's going on, my gal Janna. So we'll start with my gal Janna, because my gal Janna, she's getting nerfed. As a support player, this is pretty significant. So Eye of the Storm, which is her shield, now loses attack damage if the shield breaks. So you have that shield, you have that 90 or so HP at level 1. It breaks, that damage is gone. And the damage is very significant. It's like 13 to 50 damage or something. Like a lot of damage. And I like this. So if you've watched Hanover, or any recent tournament really, you've seen a lot of Janna. She's everywhere. And the reason for this is Sona got nerfed, Soraka got nerfed, bring in another support who was really good beforehand, Janna. So what does this really mean for her, though? What's going to happen with this Janna? So, I'm using so too much. My bad. Well, before, Janna had a big problem where she was useless. And her shield did the same thing. It would lose damage when it broke, but it lasted longer, and all the other supports were much, much better. So they're changing this back because the supports are at a different level right now, and they need to make sure Janna stays balanced. Right now, she's really hard to lane against. She is really hard to do anything against in terms of ganks because of her Q, her W, and her ult. Even the shield really provides a huge benefit. And she just does a lot for nothing. So they're trying to keep her in line, make some risk in her, give her a laning phase that is not 100% safe. So this is a good change. I like it. I hope it's not too much because it might be. But we'll see this in the coming weeks in tournaments. IPL 4 will probably answer whether Janna sucks or not. So we can see that then. Next is the Jax change. 188 HP at level 18 is going to be really nice for him. His HP per level was increased by 10. Counter-Strike has a little bigger AoE. Kind of nice. Not too huge, but not too small. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of Jax play, but AoE stuns are always good to have, so he's a little better. And his new ult, Grandmaster's Might. He will do more. He will have more armor and more MR based off his attack damage and ability power. Now this is huge because Jax has a problem right now. And if you look at the history of Jax, this actually was a problem he had before. He does a lot of damage. Like, oh man, that damage is high. But he dies. So like you hit him and he's dead and there's no more damage. This might seem obvious, but a lot of characters don't have this problem. Like, let's say Warwick, he does a ton of damage too, but he doesn't die. He's very hard to kill. So now Jax has this active that will keep him alive. He can now keep doing that damage. It's a change he needs. Is it too much? We'll see. I really cannot judge the power of Jax just because so few people play him right now. And the fact that he's got this new buff means you're going to see him a lot. My guess is people will say he's overpowered at first or underpowered, no middle ground. And we'll see his true strength coming up. If he doesn't get played by anybody for a couple months and they don't change him, then it might not have been enough. But you might just see him pop in and all of a sudden someone you don't expect like Dyrus is playing Jax. I mean, well, you expect Dyrus to play Jax if it's October of 2009, but that's beside the point. Other nice changes. Rammus. His Powerball is now easier to target. You don't have to lead people, you can just click on them. I misunderstood this the first time I heard it. I thought it meant that, oh, Rammus no longer has to avoid creeps. He still has to avoid creeps. He can just click on people instead of clicking around them, trying to hit them. Let's see. Oh, he also has a little slower jungling and he takes a little more damage. This is good. His jungling is really fast, so they want to make him a little weaker at level 2. They're trying to cut back on level 2 ganks. I'm surprised Shen didn't get hit in this patch either, but it happens. Shako. Worse early game, better mid game, better late game. Good change because right now, if he doesn't do well early game, his mid game is kind of crappy and his late game is kind of crappy. His very, very late game is amazing, but he's got to reach it. And this is also nicer because if his early game goes well, which it's very, very easy to do, he snowballs tremendously. So now it's harder to snowball as Shako, and he has more of a presence mid-game despite not snowballing. Good change. Shen. Vorpal Blade does less damage. and it has a hard cooldown. So right now Shen in lane is very, very hard to deal with. Jungle Shen's also a thing, but it's not as popular. So this change is making sure that if you're laning against Shen, you're not taking 80 DPS from his Warble Blades because he's just spamming them at you non-stop. And that's something he can do. And it's infuriating to play against, and very few people can deal with him. So now Shen has this balancing factor, which is a little less damage. I don't know if it's going to be enough to make him easy to lane against, or I think Vladimir can lane against him right now, and that's about it. But they're moving towards making Shen less of a monster while not over-nerfing him. You don't want old school Shen nobody played. They're trying to have new school Shen that's still pretty good, but not overpowered. Now, Shyvana lost about 5 MR into armor on all ranks of her ult. This is not that significant, but don't forget, it's 10 armor and 10 MR when you look at all 3 ranks at her dragon form, because that doubles her passive armor and passive MR. So they want to tone down Shyvana. She gets super tanky, super fast, so hard to kill, really, really actually almost impossible to kill. So toning this down is pretty cool, and just trying to balance it based off recent tournaments. Sona gets 8 base damage on her power cord. This is, I don't know if it's enough, but they're trying to, bring back Sona, bring back some aggression. Because right now, the fact that you do 20 damage with a Q power cord means you don't actually ever want to be aggressive early on, and that's huge. They want to make sure Sona stays aggressive, and they're going to be careful about it because Sona's been so dominant before. They don't want to overdo it. Victor has a bunch of usability changes that I really like. So the times when he gets his movement speed buff, the fact that his skills stay around when he dies. These mean that Victor all of a sudden gets a little better, because now he can ult, now he can throw down his stun, and even if he dies, their effects are still there. So it's really significant because now you can't just burst him down even if he's casted. Same change to Veigar actually, but it's not as huge. And it's only for a stun, but now, keeping that stun alive is really, really nice. Lifesteal was nerfed across the board. This is good if you've ever been bot lane. That HP just goes right back up. They actually buffed Bloodthirster in my opinion, because it's no longer a gambling item. If you're winning and you stay winning, Bloodthirster is great right now. But if you fall behind at all, it can really, really just be the end of you because you're paying so much for 15 damage and like 3% lifesteal or something. Maybe 1% actually. 14 to 15, that'd be 1%, yeah. So they're trying to make sure that Bloodthirster stays good, even with reduced lifesteal, and I like this change overall. Lifesteal really can be a huge frustration because people don't take damage, and you like seeing bars go down. Let's see. Blitzcrank's Rocket Grab. Blitzcrank's Rocket Grab now does more damage. He has a problem right now where you can grab people and they just kill you. And I actually don't know if many people put that many points in his Rocket Grab. I've always played Top Crank, so I really don't, because I need the W and the E much, much more. But if you're playing Support Crank and have maxed out Q, that extra damage is really nice early on. Oh, wait, no, I'm totally misreading this. It's extra damage early on. Okay, so it's still a 1-point wonder, but now it does more damage. Good. And the reduced mana cost, but still high mana cost, means that A, Blitzcrank loses less mana HP from his passive, and B, he can do it more often. So you gotta be careful, because if you give someone like Blitzcrank a spammable spell like Rocket Grab, he can just win. And my sister has woken up as I record this video, and is falling asleep and walking towards me while sleepwalking. Get over here. Get over here now. Alright. I'm gonna finish. Guess I'll finish this video because it's almost done. Okay. Fiora has a bug fix, and she's doing... This is because right now she has a usability problem. She just lay down. Cool. Aurelia has a change that means she will do less HP regen without her W up. This is pretty significant. Okay. Oh, I'm almost done too. I'm just finishing it. Aurelia has a passive change, so now she needs to have less sustain unless she uses her W. And when this happens, she gets back her original sustain. And this is because in recent tournaments, Irelia has been super, super dominant and is almost impossible to push out of lane. So you gotta deal with that. But the fact that this no longer happens means, cool, you can't push her out of lane as much. I don't know how this will affect tournaments. I gotta go. This was Studio saying bye. Martha, say bye.
Bye.
Okay. Okay, so one quick change I didn't talk about was Golem giving back less mana. This isn't a huge deal, but let's talk about red buff first, actually. Red buff gives you less chase, or it gives you chase, and the ability to stand toe-to-toe with somebody. And blue buff gives you the ability to stand toe-to-toe because of the cooldown reduction and mana regen. And by somebody, I mean someone who's equal to you. You would win a fight against someone who's your equal if you had red buff or blue buff, and he didn't. So you have blue buff. You also have infinite sustain in terms of mana, which can also mean HP if you can heal well. So the reason this is so significant is that how many abilities can slow, like red buff, or items? And how many abilities can give this same really high mana regeneration, like blue buff? The answer is none, really. I mean, there is clarity, there is chalice. Chalice is decent, clarity is not decent. It's just not enough mana, actually, and takes way too long of a cooldown and just isn't that good. And chalice is not really a whole lot of mana regen unless you're low, so that can put you in a bad position. But the reason the change isn't that significant is it's still a lot of mana. You still get base 25 MP5. It's just to tone down the fact that you get this massive mana boost and you can't do anything to stop the person you're against. So this was a good change on Riot. They needed to tone down blue buff. Red buff is fine because, like I said, nothing can really compare it to, like, there's enough options to compare it to some of the items and skills in game. And blue buff just doesn't have any direct comparison. So it's a good change by Riot's part, and alright, enjoy the patch. Adios.